Her name was Maya, and she had learned to read lips before she learned to read words. At 4 years old, she would press her small fingers against her mother's throat just to feel the vibrations of a voice she could never truly hear. And her mother, Elena, would let her every single time, standing still for as long as Maya needed, tears quietly sliding down her face, while she smiled so her daughter would never know the difference. Elena had accepted the diagnosis the day it came. Sensorineural hearing loss, bilateral, profound. The doctor's mouth had moved slowly, carefully, but Elena had stopped hearing after the word permanent. She had driven home, sat in the parking lot of their apartment building for 40 minutes, then walked upstairs, picked up her daughter, and whispered into her deaf ears, "You are the loudest joy I have ever known." She never grieved out loud again. She learned sign language in 3 weeks, not the basics, all of it, staying up past midnight with textbooks and tutorial videos, practicing shapes with her fingers until they ached. She joined a community of parents with deaf children, drove Maya 40 minutes each way to a specialized school 3 times a week, and never once complained about the cost, the time, or the exhaustion that had taken permanent residence beneath her eyes. She worked double shifts at the hospital where she was a nurse, not because she loved the overtime, but because Maya's hearing aids, the ones that helped her catch fragments of sound like broken pieces of a song, cost more than Elena made in 2 months. She sold her car and took the bus. She canceled her own phone plan and used the hospital Wi-Fi to video call her mother on weekends. She gave up everything quietly, the way good mothers do, not because they are asked to, but because they cannot imagine doing anything else. Maya was 8 when the audiologist first mentioned cochlear implants. Elena had heard of them before, but had always pushed the thought away, afraid to hope for something so large. The surgery was expensive, the outcome uncertain, the rehabilitation long and difficult. But Dr. Reyes, the specialist who had treated Maya since she was an infant, had been quietly working on something behind the scenes for months. He had submitted Maya's case to a foundation that funded cochlear implant surgeries for children from low-income families. He had written the application himself on his own time because he had watched Elena carry her daughter's world on her back for 8 years and believed that some burdens deserved to be lifted. The approval letter arrived on a Tuesday morning. Elena read it 4 times before she understood it was real. The surgery was scheduled 6 weeks later. Maya, who had been told only that the doctors were going to try something, new to help her hear better, held her mother's hand in the pre-op room and signed, "Will it hurt?" Elena signed back, "Little. But I will be right here." She sat in the waiting room for 6 hours. She did not eat. She did not sleep. She stared at the double doors and prayed. The way people pray when they have nothing left to offer but complete surrender. The surgery was a success. The weeks that followed were slow and careful. The implant had to heal before it could be activated, and activation itself was not a magical moment of instant hearing. It was a process, a gradual tuning, a learning. Maya had to train her brain to interpret signals it had never received before. Elena was there for every session. And then, on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon, 6 weeks after activation, Maya was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework when Elena dropped a spoon on the tile floor. It was a small sound, a tiny, unremarkable clatter that anyone else in the world would have ignored completely. Maya's head turned, not toward her mother, not toward anything visible. She turned toward the sound. Elena froze. Maya looked up at her with an expression that had no name, wide-eyed, searching, stunned, and said aloud, in her carefully practiced voice, "Mama, I heard something." Elena crossed the kitchen in 2 steps and pulled her daughter into her arms, so tightly that Maya laughed, confused and delighted, and that laugh, audible, real, heard by both of them at once for the very first time, broke Elena open in the best possible way. She wept into her daughter's hair, and Maya, who could now hear her mother crying, patted her back gently and signed against her shoulder. "Don't be sad." And Elena laughed and cried at the same time and whispered, "I'm not, baby. I promise. I am the opposite of sad." If this story moved you, please give it a like. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe to Kindness Corner Stories, where every story reminds us that love in its truest form, never stops finding a way.